You realize it's the same situation on that side. You don't know who this person is that you're inviting in. And so because I experienced it on both ends.
After they are done with Diddy, Jay-Z is up next to be exposed.
Get ready for a wild ride, because this story is about to take you deep into a rabbit hole you won't believe. Picture two of the biggest names in music history, Prince and Diddy, linked not just by fame and fortune but by a tangled web of rumors, controversies, and alleged behind-the-scenes drama that could rival any Hollywood plot. What if we told you that Prince, a man who spent his career fighting for artistic freedom and control over his work, may have crossed paths with Diddy, a mogul often surrounded by whispers of exploitation? How does the saga of an icon who battled the music industry for decades intersect with the lavish, scandalous world of Diddy's notorious gatherings? Let's explore.
That's when I was 12.
Where did you meet Prince when you were 12?
In Dayton. After he performed at UD Arena. Yeah, I mean, I knew him my whole life. He was like the guiding force for me. It's the reason I had high self-esteem was because of him. Like, just a lot of things that I didn't.
Did he say something, or was his behavior inspiring and self-esteem shedding?
First, let's set the stage with Prince, the legendary artist who redefined what it meant to be a musician. From the moment he stepped into the spotlight, Prince wasn't just another star. He was a revolutionary, a man fiercely committed to the belief that his art belonged solely to him, not to the corporations profiting from it. This unwavering conviction would ignite one of the most iconic battles in music history, Prince versus Warner Brothers. But here's where things take an intriguing twist. While Prince was fighting for artistic freedom, he allegedly crossed paths with Diddy, a figure known for hosting extravagant gatherings and navigating the music industry with a reputation for questionable business tactics. And this is where the story begins to unravel.
He was a high thinker and a guy that was always 30 steps ahead of whatever the curve was. And, you know, when you play 26, 28 instruments, it means that you are able to be multifaceted while also focusing on each thing like it's the only thing.
Prince allowing Diddy to host a gathering at his home might seem harmless at first glance, but those who knew Prince would think otherwise. Known for his extreme privacy and meticulous control over his environment, Prince was highly selective about the energy he allowed into his space. So why would he let Diddy, a figure synonymous with wild, exclusive parties, host an event at his house? According to whispers, Prince never actually attended these gatherings himself, and there's a reason for that. Allegedly, he had suspicions about what really went on behind closed doors. If you've heard the rumors about Diddy's infamous late-night events, you know they're the stuff of legend or infamy. Strict rules applied, no personal security, no phones, and absolutely no leaks. What happened inside was anyone's guess, but Prince, it seems, wanted no part of it. And yet, he still lent out his space. Was it an act of goodwill, or was there something more to the story?
But he let me know that you could be short and light-skinned with long hair, and people could make fun of you, but as long as women loved you, you had nothing.
To consider it, it's almost unbelievable that Prince, the man who famously slapped a slave across his face to protest his lack of control over his own music, allowed Diddy, a person frequently linked to dubious business dealings and corporate-style deals, to host an event at his house. However, Prince was no stranger to contradictions. As an artist, he was able to both embrace and reject the very industry that made him famous. Perhaps he recognized something in Diddy that reminded him of himself before the scars from his battles with Warner Brothers began to appear.
You met Prince?
Prince was a friend of mine. He was a friend of mine.
What was those conversations? Because look, I mean, sometimes we don't really understand or appreciate someone until they're gone. I did. I was a big Prince fan, all of his stuff,
Yeah.
because he could play all the instruments, he could sing, he could dance. He was an entertainer.
Yeah.
He could sing.
This is where things get even more complicated when it comes to Warner Brothers. Prince went to great lengths to regain control, even changing his name to an unpronounceable symbol, in an attempt to escape the bondage of his contract. However, Warner Brothers held on tight, frustrating Prince at every turn. You guessed it, Prince's feud with the label was about more than just music, it was about principle. He felt that the art he created was an extension of his soul, and to have that taken away from him was, in his eyes, a form of oppression. Diddy.
Yeah, he was like unlike anybody in the world. He was just an amazing individual.
Diddy's relationship with Warner wasn't about challenging the system, it was about mastering it. When Diddy struck a deal with Warner for his label, many saw it as a savvy business move. But the contrast between Diddy's approach and Prince's was impossible to ignore. While Prince was fiercely working to dismantle a system he viewed as exploitative, Diddy seemed to thrive within it. For someone like Prince, who saw the music industry as a battlefield, this fundamental difference in philosophy must have been glaring. But things get even murkier. Around the same time Prince was waging his war against Warner, he was also grappling with the rapidly evolving world of music distribution. Enter Jay-Z, another heavyweight in this tangled web. Prince reportedly placed some trust in Jay-Z's streaming platform, seeing it as a potential ally in protecting artists' rights. Jay-Z had cultivated a reputation for standing up for creators, or so it seemed. Not long after Prince's passing, however, his estate filed a lawsuit against Jay-Z's platform, accusing it of streaming Prince's music without proper authorization. Allegations surfaced that Jay-Z's team may have fabricated documents to justify their actions. If true, it would represent a profound betrayal, especially for someone as fiercely protective of his art as Prince.
As far as being a black man that was rich in this business at 18 years old, had already did his first $1 million contract, had already broken records, was determined that he didn't want to be like anybody else, was so great of a guitar player that black people just stopped caring about guitar, and he got left out on a limb and somehow still had to create his way out of that.
Now, think about this. Prince, a man who dedicated his life to fighting for creative control, was allegedly betrayed by a platform he trusted. Meanwhile, Diddy was linked to Warner, the very company Prince had battled against for decades. It's almost as if Prince was surrounded by figures who symbolized everything he stood against. Could this have been part of a larger issue one Prince foresaw long before it fully unfolded? What's even more unsettling is that Prince seemed to sense his time was running out. Just days before his passing, he reportedly told those around him, "Wait a few days before you waste any prayers." It's a chilling statement, one that has fueled countless theories about whether Prince knew he was in danger. Considering the battles he fought, battles that put him at odds with some of the industry's most powerful players, it's hard not to wonder if there was more going on beneath the surface.
Say allegedly has done things and allegedly participated in a lot of things that the public would not be happy.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Before we dive deeper into Prince's mysterious final days, let's circle back to Diddy for a moment. By now, you're probably wondering how all of this connects. Why would Prince, a man who fought so tirelessly for his independence, entertain any association with figures like Diddy or Jay-Z, whose actions seemed to contradict everything he stood for? Was it a case of keeping his enemies close, or was there something deeper at play? Perhaps Prince saw potential in them, a chance to influence the next generation of artists, to fight for their rights. Or maybe it was a matter of survival, navigating an industry that is notoriously unforgiving to those who don't play by its rules. One thing is certain, Prince wasn't naive. He knew exactly what he was up against, and he was never afraid to call it out. Through interviews, award show speeches, and his music, Prince made it abundantly clear that he viewed the music industry as a machine built to exploit creativity for profit. And yet, despite his relentless warnings, the very issues Prince fought against remain alive and well today. Could this be why his name continues to surface in discussions about figures like Diddy and Jay-Z? Even in his absence, Prince's fight for artistic freedom remains as relevant as ever, a testament to the enduring power of his message and legacy.
Part of the indictment, that's somewhat like a blackmail. He was blackmailing people to be in the freak off. So that's federal. That could be that's a federal charge. He can't blackmail people to say, yo, listen here, you did it once and you gonna do it again, that that ain't gonna make it with the government or no.
And that's only the start. Let's stop now and consider everything we've just unpacked, including the linkages, contradictions, and disputes. We haven't even discussed the wider ramifications of Prince's troubles or the uncanny parallels between his narrative and the hardships endured by other artists. Keep an eye on this story because it's far from over. What do you think Prince would say if he were here today, watching the industry struggle with the very problems he spent his life trying to solve? More importantly, what does it say about the industry that someone like Prince, with all his talent and influence, still had to fight so hard just to own his work?
Is he going to turn people in? Is he going to cooperate? If the federal government wants him to cooperate and they're going to cut his time, because right now he's looking at 15 to life. With all the charges he has to, he won't get out till 70 years old. He about 70. That's when they start talking about letting him come to a half.
Let's continue where we left off. We have already presented a clear picture of Prince's relentless battle against the music industry and his relationships to some of its most contentious figures, such as Diddy and JAY-Z. However, we now delve even further into the complex web of court cases, betrayals, and startling disclosures that have caused fans to reevaluate everything they believe to be true about the music industry. Prince's story serves as a warning to all artists who dare to question the status quo and believe that things are going to get even messier. It is not simply about one man's struggle for his art.
Responsibility for what he did as an individual. Sean is the one who pulled that gun out. Sean is the one who shot. So he has to take responsibility for that. He put that gun back in it.
Let's talk about Prince's career during the height of his battle with Warner Brothers. By the mid-1990s, Prince was a household name, but fame didn't shield him from the frustrations of being tied to a system determined to control him. Remember when he changed his name to an unpronounceable symbol? That wasn't a publicity stunt, it was a bold act of protest. Prince was sending a clear message to Warner Brothers: you might own my name, but you'll never own me. This fight wasn't just about creative control, it was about the principle of ownership. Prince believed every artist should have the right to control their work, their image, and their legacy. He wanted to rewrite the rules of the music industry. But the powers that be weren't ready to let go of their grip.
Jay-Z got his whooped by his sister-in-law on camera. What's her name? Solange. You got it. The feds ain't stepping in and do nothing. The feds don't care about you getting your whooped.
As Prince waged his battle against Warner, another figure in the music world was quietly building an empire: Jay-Z. At first glance, Jay-Z seemed like the kind of artist Prince might have admired, a man who came from nothing, worked his way to the top, and built a business empire far beyond music. But as we've seen time and again, success in the music industry often comes at a cost. For Jay-Z, that cost may have included stepping on a few toes or, in this case, crossing paths with Prince in ways that later sparked controversy. Fast forward to 2015, when Prince teamed up with Jay-Z's streaming platform, Tidal, to release his album Hit and Run. On the surface, it seemed like a perfect partnership. Tidal was marketed as a platform that prioritized artists' rights, a mission that aligned perfectly with Prince's values. But behind the scenes, things weren't as harmonious as they seemed. Shortly after Prince's untimely passing, his estate filed a lawsuit against Tidal, accusing the platform of streaming 15 of Prince's albums without proper authorization. According to the lawsuit, Tidal had only been granted a limited license to stream Hit and Run for a specific period. So how did the rest of Prince's catalog end up on the platform? That's the million-dollar question, one that remains shrouded in mystery.
They don't want, if they was in any of those freak-off tapes, if they played a part in any of those Diddy sessions, they don't want it to get out to the general public to make up their brand. That's why a lot of those rappers.
The estate's lawyers claimed that Tidal fabricated documents to make it appear as though they had the rights to stream Prince's older work. In other words, they accused Jay-Z's platform of playing dirty. But it gets even sketchier. Tidal reportedly refused to hand over key documents that could have clarified the situation. Instead, they hid behind legal loopholes, citing something called the common interest doctrine to avoid sharing potentially incriminating evidence. If true, this would have been a massive betrayal, not just to Prince, but to every artist who believed in Tidal's mission to prioritize creators' rights. And Prince wasn't the only artist whose work was mishandled after his passing. The music industry is rife with exploitation, and for every artist like Prince who speaks out, there are countless others who suffer in silence. But this wasn't just about legal rights and contracts. Many fans believe Prince's relentless fight for independence and his boldness in exposing the industry's shady practices put a target on his back. The music world has a long, dark history of silencing those who dare to challenge the status quo. And for someone as vocal and uncompromising as Prince, it's hard not to wonder if his battles made him a threat to the very system he sought to dismantle.
What his team is trying to do is get the public to assume that the government is leaking some of this negative information about him, like that Cassie video. But the reality is, he's got a lot of enemies.
While Prince was busy fighting Warner Brothers and later dealing with the fallout from his partnership with Tidal, Diddy was establishing his own reputation in the music industry. However, unlike Prince, whose goal was to empower artists, Diddy's career has been marred by rumors about his infamous gatherings and accusations of exploitation from former bad boy artists who said they were mistreated. It's difficult to avoid wondering if there is a deeper connection between these two situations when you take into account Diddy's relationship with Warner, the same business that Prince battled so hard against.
Tell the truth, so hopefully we can get down to the bottom of this. I'm 100%, the charges against me are 100% false, and hopefully due to time we'll start to see it.
The sharp contrast between Prince and Diddy's views on the music industry is among the most fascinating parts of this whole story. Prince felt that he should use his position to challenge the system from the outside and call for reform. Diddy, however, appeared to flourish within the system and use it to expand his empire. Despite their differences, these two men had one thing in common: they were both extremely powerful figures in an industry that frequently eats up and spits out people. Do they view each other as allies, rivals, or something in between? That is a question we may never fully answer. Others accused him of leaving a trail of broken promises in his wake.
Civil lawsuit. Cassie said that she was the victim of abuse, assault, and at the hands of Diddy.
What we do know is that Prince was never afraid to call out the music industry's hypocrisy. In one particularly memorable moment, he stood on stage at an awards show and delivered a scathing critique of how artists are treated. "As long as you sign to a contract, you're going to take a minority share of the winnings," he said. "A select few of us will do well, the majority will not." It was a bold statement, one that struck a chord with fans and fellow artists alike. But for those in positions of power, it was a direct threat. Prince wasn't just speaking out for himself, he was speaking for every artist who had ever been exploited, overlooked, or undervalued. And his fight for independence didn't stop with his music. In the early 2000s, he turned his attention to online platforms like YouTube and eBay, going after them for the unauthorized use of his work. Prince was one of the first major artists to recognize both the potential and the dangers of the digital age. While many were content to let their work be used without permission, Prince took a stand, even if it meant challenging some of the biggest names in tech. It was a move that earned him both praise and criticism. But for Prince, it was never about popularity, it was about doing what was right.
This alone, do you foresee that there could be other charges related to this case?
I'm not taking anything off the table.
No one wants a man.
While Prince was fighting for his art, Diddy was making headlines for quite different reasons. His extravagant lifestyle, high-profile relationships, and controversial business practices kept him in the spotlight, but not always for the right reasons. This stark contrast raises some uncomfortable questions about what it takes to succeed in the music industry, such as whether it's possible to build an empire without stepping on others, or whether the system is so flawed that even the most well-meaning artists end up compromising their values.
The latest on the arrest of Sean Diddy Combs. This one has so many people talking. The disgraced music mogul facing federal racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking charges. Both the prosecution and defense teams are set to discuss the next phase of action following the indictment as investigators work to determine potential co-conspirators. But how exactly did we...
As we dig deeper into this story, one thing becomes clear. The music industry is a battleground, and not everyone makes it out unscathed. For Prince, the fight for independence was a lifelong mission, one that defined his career and solidified his legacy as a trailblazer. For Diddy, the path to success was marked by both triumphs and controversies, leaving fans and critics alike questioning where his true loyalties lie. And for Jay-Z, the lingering question is this: was he truly a champion for artists' rights, or just another player in a game that's rigged from the start? But this story isn't just about Prince, Diddy, or Jay-Z. It's about something much larger. It's about an industry that has spent decades profiting from the creativity of others while giving little in return. It's about the artists who dared to speak out and those who stayed silent. And it's about the fans, who often don't realize the price their favorite musicians pay to bring their art into the world. As we continue to unravel this tale, let's not lose sight of the bigger picture. Because, at its core, this isn't just a story about music, it's a story about power, control, and the lengths to which some will go to protect their influence.
This is very significant, just from who we associate Diddy being and everything we've seen him do over the decades. Like you said, this is quite the downfall to go from, I mean, we saw the mansions back in March that were raided by the feds. So to go from living in those mansions to being in a jail cell right now, I think it really underscores the magnitude of what he's facing and the weight of the federal government.
But for now, let's leave it here. What do you think of the connections between Prince Diddy and Jay-Z? Were they allies, enemies, or something else entirely? What does it say about the music industry that these stories continue to surface long after the artists themselves have moved on? Let us know your thoughts, and stay tuned, the story is far from over. And that's just the beginning. There is still so much more to uncover, from Prince's mysterious final days to the ongoing battles over his legacy.